Bem-vindos ao Milênio e a gente está tendo o prazer de receber aqui Sherry Turkle, que é doutora em psicologia e em sociologia do MIT, do Instituto de Tecnologia de Massachusetts, e que há mais de 30 anos estuda como é que a tecnologia interfere com a cabeça da gente, com a vida da gente, e tem vários livros sobre isso. E o último livro dela, o título é Restabelecendo, Recuperando a conversa de verdade que a gente está perdendo na era digital. Vamos tentar ter uma conversa de verdade, em vez de uma entrevista formal, uma conversa mesmo. E aí eu vou ter que me expor mais do que eu faço habitualmente como entrevistador. Vamos lá? You know, reading your book I felt very uncomfortable because I realized, and it's funny because I'm in therapy, I see a therapist, a psychoanalyst, and we never brought that subject up. That I'm like the teenagers that you describe in the book, even though I'm 67. Right now, what's happening, I'm changing my behavior in a way that I prefer to text than to talk.
Just like the people I interview. What I found is that this behavior is not about young people. It's all across the generation.
Not just me, right?
No, not just you and not just young people. All across the generations, we prefer to type out our feelings rather than express them face to face.
But why?
You're less vulnerable. You're less vulnerable. And
more control?
You have more control. You can edit what you say. You can present the self you want to be when you edit. And it gives people a sense of mastery of how they present themselves, of mastery of their time. People say, what's wrong with conversation? I'll tell you what's wrong with conversation. It takes place in real time, and you can't control what you're going to say. One of the heart of what I'm studying here when I say you really must find time and space to talk to people face to face is that people feel, together but alone because they have many connections but no conversations.
I go into the elevator. I've lived in this building for 8 years here in New York. I go into the elevator with my neighbors, right? And when I'm alone, I don't pick the phone.
Right.
Just in the elevator going down. When there's somebody else, usually 2 or 3 people, everybody immediately picks up. What is going on?
Well, this is really a sign that we're unwilling to form even the small micro communities among neighbors that used to be so sustaining to us. And this is a social habit that we've gotten into that does not work to our advantage, because if you were ill in the middle of the night, and if your partner or wife, or if you're alone for some reason, you need those neighbors. We live in the fantasy that because we have our phones, we don't need anyone.
It's true. When Sandy happened, the hurricane,
yes,
we lost the energy in the building
yes,
for a week.
Yes.
And I noticed that people were starting to talk to each other and to
yes,
bond. There was no electricity, no elevator. We had to help each other. But then that went away.
Yes.
Since I read the book, I thought, well, I'm going to try to, reduce or maybe...
Talk to some people? Have you been trying to talk to some people?
Not only that, but to begin with, stop looking at my phone every minute like I do.
Good.
It's not only the phone. I have a watch that connects to the phone and the internet. And then there's the iPad and the...
Right. How's it going?
I haven't tried because I thought, I got scared. I can't live without that. I have to multitask. I have to be present.
Well, you need step one. It's a good thing you're interviewing me. You need step one. First of all, it turns out that just the presence of a phone on the table between 2 people who were having lunch together decreases the quality of the conversation they're having, and it decreases the sense of empathic connection they have with each other. So as a first step, before the first thing you should do in your program of self-help is is really do yourself and everyone in your life the favor of getting rid of the phones between you and any social
Even
engagement.
if the phone is not...
Even if the phone is muted.
If I don't look at the phone, it's there, right?
It's there. It's a symbol to you, and it's a presence. Even a silent phone disconnects us, because they redid this experiment with the silent phone just on the periphery of vision, not on the table between the two people. They redid the experiment with the phone on the periphery of vision of the people, and they had the same results. The conversation becomes trivial, and the sense of connection between the people becomes less. And then the second thing is to leave, I call them sacred spaces, the kitchen, the dining room, the car.
They're sacred.
Sacred, it's just not a place where devices go. Now, the watch raises a whole different set of problems, because some people find that the watch makes them feel more present, because they're sort of not always looking at the watch as they would be looking at a phone. They kind of glance at it, and it isn't as obtrusive. But in my studies, I find, too, that some people find it more intrusive because the watch is always there.
And now the watch is connected.
Yes, but that isn't the problem. The reason the watch is connected is because the watch may be, often the reason the watch is connected, I don't know about your case, but often the watch is connected because it's giving health data to your computer, which is toting up how many steps you take.
It gives me emails coming in and messages coming in. It distracts me all the time.
Right. So the question is, why do you need that? I mean, the question is, do we, forgetting you personally, but why do we feel that we need that? Do we need that? I mean, we can change our habits.
Creating
at work.
Sacred spaces, you say.
Yes. Because if you have a life in which you never have a feeling of solitude, that starts to be, I argue, a life where our whole sense of self becomes different, and we become perhaps less able to, to feel present to ourselves and completely
I have
whole.
to tell you that I'm afraid of getting bored being with myself, So the distractions I look for are part of that.
Well, you're not alone there either. There was a to make a pun, there was a terrible pun. There was a stunning experiment among college students that they did at the University of Virginia, where they just asked college students to sit in a chair relaxed, but just to sit, and to not have a phone or a book, but just to sit. And in the beginning of the experiment, they asked these college students, do you think that in the course of doing this experiment of just sitting for maybe 6 minutes, you would want to give yourself electroshocks? And the student said, are you kidding? Electroshocks? That's crazy. Why would I want to electroshock myself? And it turns out that after just 6 minutes of sitting quietly, peacefully by themselves, students began to self-administer electroshocks. There was an electroshock machine.
Why?
Because they couldn't tolerate the experience of sitting alone.
It was so intolerable.
It was intolerable.
Even give themselves electroshocks.
Sitting alone,
I
just
can
without.
understand that.
And that's sort of where and then they sort of did it again to make sure the experimenters were they did it again. they did experiments like this over and over.
It's very hard to be alone.
It was so hard now to be alone. But it didn't used to be difficult for people to be alone. I mean, this is something that our phones have taught us. We're rewiring our brains to not, because the brain is an amazing thing. It rewires itself to get used to what its environment is.
Yeah, this is a behavior that I didn't have 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Right?
So your brain is rewiring itself to get used to an experience of never being without constant stimulation.
I'm worried because I just had a grandson, and I told myself, and other people also told me, oh, it's going to be great because you're going to talk to them through FaceTime or Skype or whatever, through devices. My grandchildren will know me through devices, and they will see me on television, which is even
that's
even worse.
I'm not sure that's.
And I won't
Hi, grandchildren.
And I won't be having this what I'm having with you, personal, touch.
Right. Well,
I'm
the people
really
who are telling you that it's all great because they're going to be knowing you through FaceTime. I mean, that's silly. I mean, FaceTime and Skyping is great if you can't have anything better. And Skype has a very particular feature, which is that in order to give you the illusion that I'm making eye contact with you in Skype, I have to stare at the camera on my computer because that's where it looks.
Instead of staring at me.
Yes. So in order for you to feel that I'm looking at you directly, I have to look at nothing. So I'm having an experience of looking at nothing in order for you to think I'm looking at you. We're still not at a point where these technologies offer what simple face-to-face conversation is. So my book is not anti-technology. If you're separated from a loved one and this is the best you can do, go on Skype, go on FaceTime, use everything you've got. But we have to be realistic that the thing that we have that works best for us, if we're interested in intimacy and empathy, is face-to-face conversation. And we're allowing ourselves to tell ourselves a story in which we forget that. But one of the things, author's choice, one of my favorite lines in my book is, technology lets us forget what we know about life. Technology lets us forget what we know about life, or makes us forget what we know about life. And
you have
we
seen
know
in
that
young
about
people,
life.
In young people, like in middle school, like what age they are, 10 or
10,
12?
12, 13?
They don't have that, right?
They're losing empathic capacity. They're losing the simple capacity to put themselves in the place of another person and to imagine what the world seems like.
They don't have that at home?
They're not getting practice in
They
conversation.
never had a real conversation.
I don't want you don't want to exaggerate and say they never had a conversation. But I've interviewed so many kids who say, and they're not exaggerating, I've never walked to the corner store with my father where he didn't have his phone in his hand. I've just never had that experience. When we go on vacation, my mother just complains about there not being strong enough Wi-Fi. The signal isn't strong enough. So
Most important thing in life,
right.
Wi-Fi.
So we go home. we can't have a family vacation together.
So let's go back to the steps. So the sacred spaces.
The sacred space, the going to dinner and not taking out your phone is very important. The car is a place where when you're driving a car and you have family members in the car or a friend in the car, it is so common now that people use the car. First of all, people text in the car, and I'm not even going to don't text in the car. But the people who are with you in the car, that's their time to talk to you. And instead, it's very common that people say, oh, I'm just going to catch up on some emails and take out their phones. And we have to learn to say to each other, the car is where I love to have conversations with my friends. I'm not texting because I'm driving, so this is a place where you don't text either.
My daughter is here to buy stuff for her baby, and she wants to buy a bouncer. And to put the baby.
Yes.
I was looking with her, and as you said in the book, there are bouncers with a place to put the
Yes.
smartphone.
Yes, there is. And to put an iPad or a tablet.
So what do you think of babies and toddlers using those devices?
I feel so strongly about this that we could just stop the program, start again, ask me that question, and I could just give a seminar on this. This is toxic because those times spent for two reasons. First of all, that's time that your baby needs to have his or her mind wander, to learn to go to their imaginations, because that's another thing that's happening, is that we're becoming frightened of boredom. We're becoming frightened of reverie, frightened of being alone, frightened of boredom. And when you're bored, your brain isn't bored. When you're bored, your brain is doing the most important work it knows how to do. It's going back and it's building up the connections, the most significant connections that are really settling down a stable sense of your autobiographical identity.
That's what daydreaming would be?
That's what daydreaming is. Mind wandering, daydreaming, what we call being bored. And we're now terrified of those experiences of boredom.
Yeah, because we're disconnected when we do that.
Yes. Right? So the first thing is allow yourself to be bored and encourage your children to, when they say, oh, I'm bored, instead of panic, here's the game, here's the iPad, here's the thing. Well, you say, that's fine. Take a walk, sit, here's some crayons, here's some paint, here's some clay. It's fine to be bored. You want to have an experience of boredom, and also you want to have an experience where you are looking at your child and you're talking to your child in those moments when they're doing their baby bouncing. That whether or not you're not going to be, discussing Heidegger, but the moments of eye contact, of laughing, of a parent sort of saying, oh, you know what happened today? I spoke to grandma, and here's what she said, and da-da-da-da. These are crucial for your child. This is you laying down the building blocks of your child seeing how faces work, how your face changes, and so their face should change, and how your eyes light up and theirs should light up. This is how we build a person. This is how we build person. And denying your child that is forgetting what we know about life. Forgetting what we know about life. Technology makes us forget what we know about life.
What it is being human.
What it is to be human. Every mother, when she pushed her baby in a stroller, used to talk to the baby. Just because that's what a mother just kind of starts to talk to their baby. And now mothers have something fascinating to look at. They're texting, and you see babies in strollers who are staring ahead. Now, what are those children learning about what it is to be a person? Nothing.
So the babies are staring, right?
They're staring right ahead. The mothers are busy with their phones. There's now a sling. I was just in California, and there's a whole... I was at a park and watched all these mothers wearing a sling where you put your baby, you breastfeed your baby, and you have a little place for the phone so you can have both hands free to text.
But now also the machines talk to us, right?
Yes, they do.
They can replace people, right?
Well, there's the fantasy that the machines can replace people. There's a whole new generation of robots for the elderly and for young people that are talking and are there to replace people as sociable robots and as companions. And actually, I end Reclaiming Conversation with a chapter called "What Do We Forget When We Talk to Machines?" It's all about the threat to our very humanity from these robots.
We forget what it is to be human.
We forget what it is to be human. We forget what it is to have a conversation. And then, in terms of simple steps for your home life and with your family, it's not sleeping with your phone, because people sleep with their phone and are up in the middle of the night texting instead of even having solitude when they're asleep. Particularly your children. Your children should be issued alarm clocks rather than be sent to bed with their phones. They're texting all night, they're not sleeping, it's not good for them. The kitchen, the dining room, the car, sacred spaces for conversation. In the workplace, sacred spaces again for conversation, because it's been shown over and over again that conversation is good for the bottom line. Productivity, collaboration, creativity go up if your employees talk to each other. And in so many of the companies that I study, there's this sort of, people say, oh yes, let's have conversations, but then the employer is asking people to always be on their email, to be able to be responding to email 24/7, and immediately, and to show their devotion to the company by being always on email. There's no room for conversation. And I think if we just remember that technology makes us forget what we know about life, and we remember what we know about life, we'll be fine. We'll absolutely be fine.
Thank you. I'll do those things. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have confidence.
I will.
En route.
Thank you very much.